So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today we have Mr. Gareth Legg. By all accounts, an absolute legend, although he might disagree with me because he's quite self-deprecating. I wanted to get Gareth on to talk about his experience having worked with me so far in the 1%. Now, we're still working together, but from my perspective, I think Gareth's been on quite the journey and it's been amazing to see. And I think his story is really important and powerful because I think a lot of people listening will very much resonate with where he was at. So I'm looking forward to this chat. Before we jump off, Gareth, do you want to just introduce yourself, a bit about you, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm Gareth. I'm married with two kids, aged, let me get this right now, 13 and coming up 12. Cracker's busy with those, obviously. I'm operations director for a company that manufactures and hires gritters. So I've been a busy time of year at the minute.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, that's me. I've been doing that 2 years. I've been in operations probably 20.
Okay. So, by all accounts, when we first spoke, I think a lot going on, both work, home, wanting to make some changes. Let's rewind sort of 7-8 months into the past. I think you'd seen one of your ex-colleagues or someone having posted about working with me. You went, oh, maybe I want a bit of that. So you decided to reach out for a chat. What was going on for you back then that made you think, right, I want to make some changes and have a chat with somebody like me?
Yeah, so it probably started, we started end of last summer, didn't we? And it probably started, the whole process started probably October the year before, actually. So my dad was taken ill, my mum was taken ill, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law were both taken ill kind of consecutively. So from October to January, that was pretty full on for the wife and I. And then as it got into the summer, there was a couple of staff changes at work, which was fine. But what happened was we were running short-handed, loads of work to do, and we were getting on with it. But my issue was more around the fact that I struggled to cope with everything that was going on. So, I said to you, it wasn't work, it wasn't home, it wasn't the kids. It was just everything that was going on at once. And I just struggled to find any structure at all.
Yeah. And I think that's a common issue or narrative with the gents that I work with, which is it's not necessarily one specific thing. There's just a general volume of responsibilities and stuff going on. And notwithstanding, there's some stuff totally out of your control there, which is stressful as well, like with, having, relatives and people that aren't very well. But equally, it can feel like it's insurmountable. And so it's like you've got so much stuff, and so you don't know where to start, maybe kind of aware that you're not dealing with it well, or you're very aware that you're not, but equally can't see the wood for the trees or work out what or why that it is you need to do. And so you can get into quite a disempowered state. Well, then that in itself then rubs off on you and your mood and how you feel, right? Which then can have negative externalities elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I've got an amazing wife who's incredibly supportive. But it just got to the point one night, and there'd been a conversation between me and my mum. She'd said she thought I was a little bit out of turn. I didn't think I was. And then Claire just turned to me and she's like, "Are you doing rugby or football tonight?" And I literally just ended up upset, crying, because I couldn't make that decision. Am I doing rugby or am I doing football? And I had seen your stuff online, and I think Andy Taylor won't mind me giving him a shout out because he's done the podcast. So had a look at Andy. He was an old customer of mine that I liked, and he was very typical in terms of, on the outside, running a business, wife, 2 daughters, had everything, was looking really successful. And when he popped up, I was like, why is Andy doing something like that? It didn't make any sense. And then followed up a bit on some of your stuff, listened to a few of the podcasts, looked at, and just thought, at that point, I just thought, I just need some help.
And again, that's common, isn't it? You look around you, and you think everyone's sorted, everyone's bossing it, and then someone like Andy, who is very successful and done very well and got other trappings of a great life, him going, "Oh, I needed some help and I wasn't feeling good." He's, "Oh shit, it's not just me actually that struggles with that." And I recorded another podcast earlier, and we had a similar conversation where I think you see everyone else as external, right? On LinkedIn or at work, or whatever, and everyone seems like they're pretty coherent, got it switched on for most of the time. And so you make this assumption that everyone's like bossing it and perfect, and then they're not, right? And I think there's power in realizing that at first, but also it then gives you license to go, well, maybe I do need some help, and that's okay, because no matter what and how resilient you are, I think sometimes in life you can just get to a point where there's a tipping point of just too much. And like you said there, the actual I guess the catalyst there was that I couldn't make a decision between am I taking someone between rugby and football, which ostensibly is a pretty straightforward decision, no judgment there. But it just speaks to how much you had going on. It's like I cannot think or process that, and so I guess that was shone a light on the fact that you need to make some changes, right?
Yeah, you said it to me on the call. You said you'll be getting coached at work. You'll have had people that work with you and you work for that will help you through your career and do something like that. But has anyone ever spent any time with you and given you a bit of structure about how to deal with stuff and the volume of stuff that you deal with and when you deal with it? And it was like, no, never. It's always just been, I'll do a list, and then the list gets bigger and bigger and it stays in your head and you don't write stuff down and you end up acting on what is the most immediate thing in your head or what is the burning bridge now. And it just becomes perpetually chasing that to-do list.
Yeah, and that's where I think you hear phrases like burnout and overwhelm and whatever else, and I think that's where it comes from. I think it feels like, and I use the word on purpose, when you feel like you've got a perceived lack of agency, because there's often, once you unpick it and look at things, there is more agency than we think, right? And again, not saying it in a judgmental way, but just when you're in that state, it's hard to see. But when you've got a perceived lack of agency and things are insurmountable and you don't feel like you can control it, that feels really shit, because it's like it's all there, you don't know what to do with it, and it's disempowering. Whereas I think when we have agency and we feel like we're better in control of those elements, well then, doesn't stop life being difficult and stressful and throwing things at you, but you're in a different place to be able to deal with it and cope with it. Because then there's an analogy. Imagine like you're a Coke bottle, like, and life shaking you up, right? And if anyone's not listening, they're watching. Like I'm shaking up, pretending I'm shaking a Coke bottle. And I think what we want is, and if you got a Coke bottle and shake it up, you drop a bottle on the floor, you wouldn't just open the top and go bang. You go, you let some of that air out. I think the analogy for you, Gareth, was like you were a Coke bottle getting shaken up. Someone was chucking fucking Mentos into it, and there was a mechanism for taking the top off. And so it was like, whatever. And I think metaphorically, what we've helped you do is kind of learn those mechanisms to release some of that stress out, but in a regulated fashion. Does that analogy
Yeah,
sort of sense?
yeah, no, that's pretty perfect. I mean, that my outlet was being Snappy at home, and the reason I joined was to try and be a better dad, if I'm honest with you, first and foremost. So aside from doing all that, I just recognised that I was snappy and not present, doom scrolling, not attentive, and that's not what I wanted to be. And I think it did all culminate in me, being unable to make that decision, and therefore having that kind of mechanism of if you do this and you do this and you do this, it helped. But I think I went through this with my boss because I was having a chat with him, who's been brilliant, but the whole explanation around it, the way that you said it to me was, this will work. And if it doesn't work, it's because you've not tried it hard enough. It's not on. And I needed that level of, no, I will help you, but you need to sort your shit out kind of thing, because I did. You do the exercise things, and once you miss it for a week, outside of this program, you miss it for a week and it was like, oh, it doesn't work, it's shit, it's no, and you go back to doing the daft hours at work and the not making a list and everything else. But you were just like, well, if it doesn't work, that's your fault. And I was like, right, yes, that was really good for me.
Yeah, and I think there's a nuance there in terms of like people think tough love, kick up the arse, and equally me just telling you if something hasn't worked, going dickhead, do it better. That helps no one. So if you haven't do it, we go why, and you go well this and this. Okay, well what can we do? We address that. But then once you've got that framework, it's like well you do need to take responsibility. And the thing that I say to anyone I work with is the only time this doesn't work is if something goes wrong and goes pear shaped, you put your head in the sand, ignore it, and don't talk about it. If you come to the process and go, think I fucked up here or I didn't do it, well, okay, well let's talk about why and discover it and help you move forward. If you ignore that and just go, oh, it's all fine, well then there's no possible way to help. And actually, as we've discussed and throughout the process, Gareth, with yourself and the other gents in the program, I always bang on about this. The magic of where you change is actually when you've messed up and you think you fucked it all up and it's gone pear-shaped. Because if you're able to go, swallow me, you go, right, I think I messed up, what do we do? Okay, we can learn. And actually, that's usually where, like you said, if you're on your own, you go, oh, fuck it doesn't matter. It's like, no, we'll hold you in a space where it does matter and help you work through it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we've had this comment fairly recently that, I missed one the other week because I was busy at work. It's all right. But then there have been other weeks when I've really not wanted to do the call, really had a bad week, not done what I said I'm going to. But I've kept on with the call and I've made the call and I've said, I'm not where I want to be. Or sometimes I've not said a lot, but I've been on it And I think that's the difference between your 4-week fitness kind of thing where you're doing 1,000,000 steps a day and whatever it is, and this where I have made the calls. I have stuck by it, even if I've had a bad week. And that accountability and holding myself in the group has been really good for me. I mean, I was the biggest skeptic of the group, bar none, as you well know. It's like the last thing I need is another WhatsApp group, but it's been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I still use you as an example when I speak to potential clients when I have an initial chat with them, and I say, because the group aspect, I would say, there's probably 50% of guys like, yeah, fair enough, sounds pretty reasonable, get it, but I understand. There's about 30% who are like, ooh, we're not sure about that. That's a bit funny. I'm not really keen. Then there's maybe 20% who are just like totally just not doing it, which is fine, right? You were definitely on the second ladder, probably right near the end of that spectrum. And I think because of the conversation we had, and in Trust and Andy, I remember we had the chat, and you were like, look, I'm not keen on that at all, but fine, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
I remember, and I used you as an example still. I remember saying that, and like we had your first call, worked way to you, and I was like, right, how's your week gone? And you just went, your shoulders dropped, you went, oh, it's not just me, and like I could just see the relief.
Yeah.
Like, and I think just that realization, I think, I don't want to speak for you, Gareth, but it's quite powerful, right?
No, I remember it. I was sat in the house upstairs, and it was just, yes, I'd talk to Andy, but until you actually sit there and do it yourself, it was just like, wow. Because you do think it's just you, because you work hard, you get in a decent job and family and all the rest of it, and life looks good, but nobody sees what else is going on. And it was, you think that it is only you that's struggling with it, and it's why am I struggling with this when everything else is going really well? And it was a massive relief that actually just that realization was, God, it's not just me.
Yeah, and I think that is powerful because, like we said at the start, we have this assumption that everyone else is sorted, and they're very much not. And it's not like we sit around crying to our cornflakes in the process, or everyone's waving the dicks around, aren't I amazing? It's just this shared commonality experience. And like you described there, it's one of those ones as a coach, and if I'm explaining to people how I work, especially with the skeptics, it's really hard to understand what that feels like unless you see it and feel it. Does that make sense? It's like, I can tell you a group program is powerful for all these reasons we're describing. And you're like, yeah, okay, oh yeah, someone else's problem's bollocks. I wasn't going to care. And you sit and you feel it. You go, oh, right, because there's two parts, right? There's you get a whole other perspective you might not have considered, because you go, oh, he's struggling with that, and that's okay. And there's that relief. But then there's also that part of it which is like, well, hold up. If he's got this problem and he's managing to do that and he's turned that around and he's just been honest about that and that's helped him, maybe I can do a bit of that as well. And so I think for me as a coach, I shared this on a podcast the other day. I do one-to-one coaching, and it's a little part of that as part of the process you've been in as well. And of course, I like to believe it's powerful, but I do believe for most people, the group process is much more powerful. I've had clients that I've worked with one-to-one before, and then we've gone, right, for whatever reason, they're like, I tell you what, that group thing you're doing, should I give that a crack? I was like, yeah, definitely. And we'd probably achieve what we might have taken 6 weeks, maybe longer, a couple of months with one-to-one. In 2 weeks, like, boom, it's done. And I think it's there's that power in that group experience. Does that resonate or make sense?
Yeah. And there's things, last week I was relatively quiet in the group, busy doing stuff. But you do read the other people. I think part of it, you read other people's posts. And, some of the posts last week was like, that's what I'm struggling with as well. And he's doing that. And therefore, well, if he's doing that, why can't I do that? And this week, I've adopted what he was doing last week, and like a bit more journaling on the food, stuff like that. And it's already having an effect. So not only do you kind of, you feel what people are going through and recognize yourself in it, which you wouldn't do on a one-to-one.
No.
And it's also a reminder of what we've done. And if you're not up to date with the course or whatever, but, oh yeah, I need to do that. It's just that reminder, which is really important.
So as we sit today, we're probably, 6, 7, 8 months into the process, and we're still working together for transparency, which is great. What would you say have been your, I guess, key learnings then, having come through the process so far, Gareth, and as we sit today?
From someone that would never have asked for help, actually getting to the point and asking for help was kind of massive for me, because I always thought, just get on with it. My attitude was, suck it up, it will be all right. And actually it wasn't. And I wasn't going to get better by not doing anything. I couldn't fix this myself. And I'm a huge advocate. It's like, if you want a mortgage, you go to a mortgage advisor. if you want this, you go to the people that specialize in these things. And I was sat here going, I can fix this, I can muscle this out, and I couldn't. And that realization at that point of I actually need something from someone was massive for me. So you can't fix some of this stuff yourself. Yes, one of your things, we're always busy. There's always something. There's always kids. That's fine. It's just how you manage it, and that's what I've got out of this massively.
Yeah, and you've fully embraced that. Taking that a bit further, I've used this analogy before, but you talk to someone who's into golf, right? And you go, "What? The best golfers in the world, like Rory McIlroy, whatever. Has he got a golf coach? Yeah, of course he has. so you probably think it's reasonable to get a golf coach. For some reason, I think maybe because it's us, it's you. Like when it's stuff in life, just other things, and if it's not working, we assume that we ought to know how to do it. And I think it's recognizing that there's nothing wrong with having a golf coach to support you or a business coach. This is, you could call it life coaching. I call it performance coaching. I think, guys, it sounds like that, but whatever you want to call it, right? But it's like, maybe I'm struggling a bit, and there are things that I can't see, and I need a bit of perspective. And it's not like the stuff we do is particularly rocket science or earth shattering, but I think what a good coach does, no matter the domain, it helps you see things with a different perspective. Like the golf analogy is probably, if you don't know what you're doing, you do that. And the golf coach goes, right, move your foot 2 inches to the right and put your wrist that way. What the fuck? Yeah. Now, like that's come off the back of thousands of hours and time coaching and whatever else. What's that? Well, it's that distilled, but that has a profound impact. And I think often, I'm not just speaking for myself, but good coaching, it has that same impact. Like some of the conversations we've had, Gareth, and some conversations I have with my own coach or therapist, or whatever. Sometimes I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding?" but like, if you don't see it, you don't see it, right? And sometimes you need that mirror or that perspective to help you work through what then seems very obvious, right?
Yeah, and we've said before, probably what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you doing it? And sometimes and if it was anyone else, I would be saying, well, why aren't you doing that? Or why aren't you doing that? But you don't look after yourself until somebody kind of prompts you, pushes you a little bit and says, and actually, to be honest, shows you the benefits of doing it as well. By you saying, right, I want you to do the journaling, I want you to do this, and come back to me and tell me how it is. Before we came on this, I've just done some because I was like, right, need to catch up on that. There we are. And the headspace is much better. And it took 5 minutes. People, you should be doing it, but you don't until you actually see the real benefits.
Yeah, part of it, I guess, is actually having the experience of seeing how it feels as well, right? And so some of these things you might know or been told, oh, maybe journaling, self-reflection is a good idea, or getting some steps is a good idea, or not being on your phone at midnight is a good idea. Like, do it, see what happens. Because sometimes you ask someone to do something. I do this as a coach. Like, you'd be like, oh, well, we're going to try this. Like, yeah, what about this? Could you just try it once? Just give it a crack. Like, what is the world going to end if you don't have your phone in your bedroom once? Well, no, just try it once. And if you hate it, just put it back in your bedroom. I had a great night's sleep. Well, there we go. You want to do it again? All right. Like, it's a random example, but I think it's letting the pressure off yourself, dropping your ego a little bit to go, well, maybe I'll just give it a crack and see how it goes, right? And I think in that headspace, almost seeing yourself as an experiment, it takes a bit of the pressure off, and you realize, actually, this stuff has got legs, right? It's worth doing.
Yeah, there was one guy, and I can't remember his name, but his analogy I have used all the time, right at the start, and he was a big guy, whatever, and he just went, the meditation is brilliant. And I'd listened to him a few weeks on the calls, and I was like, we never spoke to him outside the calls or anything like that, but he kind of looked as though he was doing what I was doing, like operations, all the rest of it. And he said, yeah, my head was like a boiling kettle, and that's the analogy that I've used because that's how it was. And he went, the meditation has been brilliant. It's really helped me. And I'll be honest, you saying, do the meditation, I probably would have given it a go, but probably not as much as he said it. And I was like, actually, I'll give it a go. And do I do it all the time? No. Do I use it? Yes. But that was the whole thing about, seeing somebody else, them saying there's benefits, a few other people nodding and me going, maybe you need to suck up your ego.
Give it a crack, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, that's where the group bit is more powerful, because sometimes, like, by the way, not like I've got it all sorted in any way, shape, or form, but like I'm the coach leading this experience, so I'm going to recommend things. Well, you're fine or whatever, but almost see me as slightly different from the other guys in the process, right?
Yeah,
but then you see
absolutely.
One guy you totally relate to, go, I'm doing it, it's great. Oh, well, maybe I best give that a crack then. It's not just some esoteric bollocks. Like, it's worth doing. And again, I think that's where the group has more power. I think often some of those conversations and those bits where it's like cross-purpose stuff, I think sometimes that is more powerful than me. And I've had guys say on when we do wrap-ups and chats to go, "Yeah, you're a great coach, like, but to be honest, the group's better." I was like, "Fine, that's what I want." But that's the point, right?
Yeah, yeah, and they're all there to support each other. There've been issues put on the group. I've put issues on the group, and some of the feedback you can't answer all of that because different people have different life experiences, and so you get different answers from different perspectives, which is brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, and I won't share some of the specifics, but there's a couple of things that you've shared that you've been through some difficult stuff and what's been happening, and you've been very open about it. But like I said before about where some of those challenges that we would maybe just grind out or ignore, or you say suck it up, you've gone, all right, maybe I didn't shower myself in glory in this situation. Boys, what do you think? And actually it helped you think about it differently, approach it differently, approach the how you would have dealt with the situation afterwards differently. And so, okay, in the moment it weren't perfect, and myself included and others, right? But then you've actually turned that into some massive personal growth because you haven't shied away from it. And I think without the group, of course, you chat to your coach about that, but I think that really helped you through some of those situations. And I could literally see the change happening as you were messaging and talking, right? It's amazing.
Yeah, no, and there's been stuff around the family, and no secret, lost my dad in August and all the rest of it, but that was just that was just stuff. But the group, the different suggestions and the different messages and what about this were brilliant. They were really
Yeah.
helpful and supportive from
And
people that, we've never met each other face to face. The group haven't, stuff like
no.
that. And yet you're sharing stuff that's the first thing to kind of overcome. But then you very quickly get into that because it's a shared experience with others that are willing to share theirs as well.
Yeah, it's different from a WhatsApp banter group with your mates, right? There's
Yeah,
like there is a bit of banter in there because we're a
there
group
is a
of
bit of
guys
passion.
being silly, which is part of the fun as well. You want some of that, but it's and I think the reason it happens is because you don't know people. It's almost easy to share, but then you actually feel quite a large bond because you shared some pretty powerful stuff, and so I think that compounds, right? I mean, I'm biased because it's what I do, but I do really think there's this huge power in it. And I think as guys, having an outlet where we can talk, but then also have solutions to our problems, because we get told this bollocks, well, not bollocks. Men are told you need to talk. Well, that's fine, right? But men also need action, and they also need to know how to find solutions to the problems that they're having. And I think that's what we like to do as guys. We want to fix and build and do it. So we want to talk about it and share your experience and what's going on. Then like, right, well, what can I do? And I think having a space where we can share openly, but then have solutions to what we do to work through it, I do think that's really powerful. And even your best mates, you get a bit of banter back, and when you're talking to them, but like sometimes they might just tell you things that you want to hear. Do you know what I mean? To make you feel better. And that, it's not like we're sitting here to be pricks, but sometimes in a coaching space, when you're better, you don't need to be told it's all magic when it's not, or you've been perfect when you haven't. It's about helping, giving you that mirror, but then a safe place to go, well, how can I change this and move forward? Does that make sense? And I think
Yeah,
that's quite difficult when you know someone really well, or it's a loved one or something else, right?
yeah. I mean, I told my best mates what I was doing, and they were all massively supportive. Have we spoken about it since? Very briefly. That's it.
Yeah,
If I needed something, they'd be there. That's
of
fine.
course.
But
Yeah,
actually, I needed a separate group of people to talk to that aren't your best mates, that don't have that bias as well.
yeah, totally. Totally. And yeah, your best mates lay in front of a car for you and do anything for you, right? That's different. This is a different experience, but to help you work through that stuff, right? Um, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, Gareth, because we've already chatted for a while and I could talk forever and I could talk for England. Um, let's say someone's sitting listening to this chat we're having. They were maybe in a space that you were back, a few months back, that boiling kettle analogy, and they're probably a bit skeptical as well around coaching, just like you were. What would you say to someone in that space? And regardless of whether it's to work with me, it doesn't really matter. Just more so like, how you were feeling back then, right? What would you say to your past self if there was another version of someone like that, struggling like that, with what you know now and what you've learned?
It's a little bit like I said before, you need to be ready to ask for help yourself, and I got to that point. I should probably have been more, in fact, you know what? I was more aware that I needed help before I reached out. You shouldn't leave it until you get to me where you literally can't make a decision whether you're doing rugby or football. If you think there's a problem, talk to someone, but that's the step that you've got to do. You've got to recognize that you might be the best in operations that you can be, or whatever your field is, but actually you're probably not trained to fix yourself or give yourself the advice that you need. You need that external thing. So I would always say, reach out, talk to someone, but a proper person, not your friend, just like we've explained.
Nice, and of course I'm biased. I've got skin in the game. I'd probably say exactly the same.
Yeah, talk to Luke.
Yeah. But I would agree though. It's true. You got to recognize you got a problem, and there's a phrase from recovery, right? Which is it's around alcohol, but it's the same thing. It's like, you think you got a problem, you got a problem. Because if someone ain't got a problem, they don't think they got a problem, right? So that's the first point. But then the second point is being able to talk about it and vocalize it and do it. And I think sometimes that asking for help, and I'm not great at this either, just generally to be transparent, it can feel a bit scary because you're then admitting there is an issue. But if you can do that, then you can change. That's sort of the line in the sand. And once you go, okay, fine, things aren't working, need to make a change, right? And then it's like, well, what do we do about it? And there's people like me that can help, of course. But I think the first step is just recognizing that. And that in itself is pretty empowering, right? And then I think the other part is recognizing it isn't just you. So if you're feeling like you're struggling, it's difficult, I can guarantee, and maybe I work in an echo chamber, but like there are lots of other people out there in similar situations, and that's okay. But you very much can do something about it, right?
Yeah, you can. And at the end of the blueprint, I posted on LinkedIn, and again from there, the responses that I got from people that kind of know me going, yeah, I've struggled with this. Again, people that would go, wow, I never expected that. It's not just you. It's probably should be my motto for doing this with you.
Yeah.
It's not just me,
Yeah. And that's the thing, which I think was probably really helpful for you to see that reinforced that was the post that Andy did. You got in touch off the back of that. I know for a fact I've chatted to people off the back of your post, right? But like you hearing people say that to you, you go, oh, it's just full circle,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Gareth, it's been amazing chatting, mate. I really appreciate it. I love working with you. I'm enjoying continuing to work, and then we're going to keep going. So thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know anyone who's listening will have got a lot out of this conversation. If anyone is listening or watching and they're interested in seeing how I can help, drop me a note in the comments or find me a DM. Otherwise, have a fantastic week, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.